the result I wanted, but truthfully the result I wanted was to see if I could still do it. But I didn't quit, never give up, never retreat, never surrender, fight to the end, go out on your shield. Time is the fire in which we all burn. But I gave it my absolute all, and I have nothing but respect for Chase. I have no excuses. He was the man who won. He deserves this victory. Truthfully, completely, and honestly, I'm actually very proud of him. And I'm glad to know that Misfits have a true champion, because he is a true champion. So I'm not disappointed in myself. I don't operate from that frame. The only way I would be disappointed in myself is if I was too scared to fight at all.
Alright fellas, it's been a few days since the Tate fight, and now that the initial reactions have settled, I think we can finally talk about what actually happened without all the noise. Because looking back at it now, this fight wasn't controversial, it wasn't unlucky, and it definitely wasn't close. It was, in many ways, an all-time case of cherry-picking gone wrong. For years, Andrew Tate has built a massive part of his brand around being a dangerous, disciplined fighter. Someone who understands violence, competition, and physical dominance better than most people. If you've spent any time online, you've seen the pad work clips, the old kickboxing highlights, and the constant talk about how he's still in elite shape. And honestly, going into this fight, there wasn't much reason to doubt him on the surface. He has real experience. He's been in real fights. He's won real titles, so the assumption was simple. Even if he wasn't perfect, surely he'd be prepared enough to handle the challenge in front of him. But that assumption turned out to be completely wrong. From the opening rounds, something felt off. Tate didn't look sharp, he didn't look relaxed, and most importantly, he didn't look comfortable in the kind of fight that was unfolding. As the rounds went on, it became impossible to ignore. He was fatigued, slow, and struggling with basic boxing fundamentals. That's what confused people the most. This wasn't supposed to be a guy showing up unprepared. Tate has money, resources, connections, and a team full of people who've lived the fight life. You'd expect a camp that left no stone unturned. Instead, what we saw looked like a fighter who trained for a very specific version of the fight and panicked when it didn't go that way. If you go back and look at the fight camp footage that was posted on Rumble, it starts to make more sense. The camp itself looked intense, sure, but intensity doesn't always equal quality. Most of the sparring we saw was against people smaller than him, kickboxers or his own friends, guys he's likely sparred with for years. That's a huge problem. When you're preparing for a real fight, especially at heavyweight, familiarity is the enemy. Sparring with people who know you, who respect you, and who don't push you into uncomfortable territory creates a false sense of readiness. You don't learn how to adapt. You don't learn how to survive chaos.
And everyone said, Andrew, you're 40 years old. You just got out of jail. You've been through so much. You have so many problems and so much going on. Why would you do this? Why would you risk it all? Why would you get in there? And I felt a tinge of fear for the first time in my life. And that's when I knew I had to fight. Because the second I felt afraid, I knew I had to fight. I can't live doubting myself. Seeds of doubt grow into forests of inaction. I don't operate that way. If Chase and I had to fight again tomorrow, I'd go tomorrow still with 100% belief in myself, even though I know he just beat me. That's who I am. The second I knew that, I was worried about it, I knew I had to do it. And I'm not afraid to lose. I'm afraid to not try.
The best sparring partner we saw was Benjamin Adegbui, a legitimate Glory kickboxing champion. But even then, he's still a kickboxer, not a boxer, and there's no indication of how often they actually sparred or how intense those sessions were. And that raises a massive question. Where were the real tests? Where were the big ugly heavyweights whose job was to lean on Tate, smother him, push him into the ropes, and make him work when tired? Where were the rounds designed specifically to break his gas tank and force adjustments? Because here's the thing, if Tate was genuinely sparring people who mimicked Chase's size, pressure, and style, someone in that camp would have noticed the conditioning issues early. Fatigue doesn't just magically appear on fight night. It shows up in sparring long before that. Either he wasn't being tested properly or nobody was being honest with him, and that's where camp dynamics matter. Loyalty is great, but loyalty without honesty gets fighters hurt. Tate has a close relationship with his coach, and there's nothing wrong with that, but there were plenty of experienced people around him. At no point did anyone step in and say, this isn't enough, or we need harder work, or this fight is going to be uglier than you think. Instead, it looked like everyone bought into the idea that Tate's past experience would carry him through. That belief set the stage for everything that went wrong next. Now let's talk about what actually happened in the ring, because this is where all the questions get answered.
I knew it'd be hard to have him notice. If I'm gonna come back, I need to fight someone with it. Hey, real quick, look at, hey boys, right here behind us. You get a selfie real quick behind me. All the fighters, everybody. Right here. Oh, Christian. Oh, hi. Good to see you. Right here. You still got the light? Where? Yeah, right here. Let's give you a handshake. Good to see you.
Son,
Good to see you. I'll wait for you.
I need you in court to tell the judge. Why are you gay? You know, like I'm in court and the judge is talking shit. I'm like, you weren't even there. What the fuck do you know?
Tell the guy he's gay.
Yeah, exactly. Why are you gay? Let me go home.
Early on, Tate didn't look terrible. He was composed, moving, and trying to establish his rhythm. But almost immediately, Chase made it clear what kind of fight this was going to be. He closed distance, leaned, clinched, and forced Tate to carry his weight. And that's not dirty, that's not unfair, that's heavyweight boxing. This idea that clinch work somehow excuses fatigue is ridiculous. Bigger fighters are supposed to do exactly that. They sap your legs, drain your gas tank, and force you to work even when nothing clean is landing. If you don't have answers for that, you're going to drown. And that's exactly what happened. As the rounds went on, Tate's movements slowed, his hands dropped, his breathing became obvious. And once the fatigue set in, something alarming happened. Nothing changed. No adjustments, no reset, no shift in tempo. He fought tired the exact same way he fought fresh. That's one of the biggest red flags you can see in a fight. Good boxers don't just have a plan A, they have survival instincts. They know how to buy time, disrupt rhythm, control clinches, or slow the pace when things go wrong. Tate didn't do any of that. Once his gas tank dipped, the fight essentially played out on Chase's terms. And that's why the better boxer argument falls flat. Tate might be more technically polished on paper, but boxing isn't judged on how you look when everything's going right. It's judged on what holds up when everything starts falling apart. The better boxer is the one who adapts under pressure, not the one who looks clean in pad work videos. What made this even worse was how predictable the problems were. This wasn't some freak scenario. Everyone knew Chase was bigger. Everyone knew he'd lean. Everyone knew the pace would be uncomfortable. Yet Tate looked prepared for an early, controlled fight, not a grind. That's not an age issue, that's not bad luck. That's preparation failure. People keep bringing up Tate's age, but that's honestly a lazy explanation. Plenty of fighters compete effectively into their late 30s and early 40s when their preparation matches the reality of the matchup. Tate didn't lose because his body suddenly gave out due to age. He lost because he didn't build the engine for a worst-case scenario. You don't train for when everything goes perfectly, you train for when things go wrong. And once the fight crossed that line, it exposed the cracks immediately. Chase, on the other hand, did exactly what he needed to do. He stuck to the game plan, stayed disciplined, and let the fight come to him. He didn't try to be flashy, he didn't chase a knockout. He simply made Tate uncomfortable for long enough that the conditioning gap became obvious. By the later rounds, the outcome felt inevitable. After the fight, Tate initially handled the loss fairly well. He didn't explode, he didn't immediately make excuses, and he accepted the decision. But over the following days, the narrative started to change. Instead of keeping it simple, I lost. I wasn't prepared for that kind of fight. We got a long, drawn-out explanation about mindset, spirit, and lessons. And while reflection is fine, over-explaining is usually a sign that someone is struggling to accept reality. If you truly understand why you lost, you don't need a 40-minute monologue. One thing Tate kept repeating was that he got tired, but he didn't know why. That statement alone tells you everything. In boxing, fatigue is never random. It's caused by pressure, pace, inefficiency, or lack of conditioning. The fight was explaining the problem in real time. Tate just didn't want to hear it. The other recurring theme was downplaying Chase's impact while still acknowledging the clinch work. But again, that's not an excuse. That's the sport. Heavyweights don't fight pretty. They fight effectively. The most concerning part of Tate's post-fight response wasn't the loss itself. It was the refusal to fully acknowledge where things went wrong. Instead of critiquing the camp, the sparring, or the conditioning strategy, the focus shifted toward abstract concepts. And that's dangerous, because if the takeaway from this fight is anything other than the preparation didn't match the challenge, then nothing changes. This fight should be a wake-up call, not just for Tate, but for anyone thinking about stepping into competition off reputation alone. Combat sports don't care who you were. They only care about what you've done recently and how well you've prepared. Tate still has options. He can reassess, rebuild his camp, and train properly if he truly wants another fight. Or he can walk away and accept that this chapter has run its course. There's no shame in either decision. The only mistake would be pretending this fight didn't expose real issues. At the end of the day, the fight doesn't lie. Chase came prepared, Tate didn't, and no amount of mindset talk can change that reality. So what do you think? Was this a conditioning failure, a camp failure, or a combination of both? Did Tate underestimate the fight, or overestimate where he's at now? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I read every single one. And if you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to like, share, and subscribe for more honest fight analysis. Thanks for watching, fellas. I'll catch you in the next one.